Welcome back to the Garden Hutch. Today we discuss week 19 of 2022. Let's get going. In a word, I would describe week 19 as hot. Oh my goodness. It's still the first half of May, and last week the average temperature was about 91 degrees or so. The feels like temperature was just above triple digits on average. So it was hot, it was humid. And our plants, of course, we're gonna have to take a look around and kind of show you everything that's been going on. The plants, some of them responded well, some of them didn't like it a whole lot. And towards the end of the week, we got a totally out of nowhere deluge. You know, the weatherman, I think, had like a 10% chance of rain, scattered thunderstorms, right? Well, that one scattered thunderstorm in Arkansas landed right here on the homestead. We got almost 2 inches of rain, 60-mile-an-hour winds. Luckily, we had had a chance to sort of take care of our peppers and tomatoes and that sort of stuff. So, well, that covers the weather. So like I said, we're pretty much just gonna have to go from garden to garden, just sort of look and see what happened at week 19. As we stated, our gardens have really taken off. The heat last week did really good for things like these pumpkins here. They were real small last week. Now they've got blooms on them. They're cascading out into the yard the way we would like. This is kind of exciting over here. We got this from our local master gardener sale 3 years ago, I think. A lot of the stuff we're going to see today was actually 3 years ago. But this guy, this is the first year this honeysuckle has bloomed. And it's got these fantastic coral flowers on it instead of the traditional yellow colors. Around here, the honeysuckle is we consider it a natural pollinator. It grows on a lot of fence lines, that sort of stuff. So when we had the chance to buy this coral, we wanted to put it in here to sort of go along the top side of this bamboo fence, bring some pollinators in, and we like the way that it looks. So, but that's the top of this garden. Now, as we sort of make our way down here, you can see all of these herbs have come back from last year. This is another one of the third year plants here. I believe this is referred to as, what's going on, Red? He's kind of made himself at home. Hey, get off my squash. Anyway, this right here is a pollinator plant that we put in. You can see behind it, we had a bit of compost left after we done the potatoes, and I'll show that as well. But after we healed the potatoes with the compost, we had a little left, so we filled some buckets. So these are just tomatoes from the greenhouse. We'll stake them up when they get big enough, that sort of thing. But these are primarily just going to be to keep the chickens busy and kind of give them something to look at. We'll go through up here our peas. We eat on these. Right now we're getting, out of all the buckets, we might get a handful of peas every day. So Leslie and I, in the morning, whenever I go through to do my garden list, we come out and we pick these peas and we eat them kind of as a pre-breakfast before we actually do anything else. Once we start getting more of them, we'll probably throw them in the salads. If I'm being honest though, I really enjoy having them in the morning as we walk through. So we'll go on the top side up here, and you can see this butternut squash has started to take off into the trellises. So we're hoping all three of them will get there. And you know, as time goes on, the front part of these leaves get big enough where they're going to fill all of this in. So, and if not, then we'll learn from this, and we'll maybe can plant either more of them, or maybe move the butternut squash back this way towards this end here. And if that's the case, then it'll cover as it grows up. But our deal is coming along nicely. These have really taken off with last week's heat. Deal apparently really likes the heat, like a lot of other things. Some things don't, and we'll get to those eventually, but you can see our cucumbers are coming up nicely. So they'll start getting on, they're to the point now where they'll start holding on to that trellis. And down here, we're still picking onions. But these onions are doing well. I'm gonna go through this week probably and start clearing out around the bulbs of the ones that we want to keep and start thinning them out. We've got all the onions removed from the buckets that we grew the peas in. We use those in our salads this week, so it's on to the beds now and start thinning those. I've said this before, but those things are absolutely delicious. This bed here, you can see now that we've cleaned the that we have cleaned out all of the onions. It kind of looks a little bare, but that's fine. What we plan on doing is growing some extra greens in here. So now that the peas are come up, once they're nice and established, I'll take some turnip seeds and I'll put them in this bucket here. And in a few, I don't know, about a few weeks or so, we'll start thinning those out and eat them with our salads. You know, maybe 6 weeks, 7 weeks, we can cut them, make greens and eggs or something along those lines. Now we come to probably my most embarrassing failure thus far of the year. This is our sweet potatoes, and some of them are starting to take off. They're looking really nice. But I did all of the research on the soil for the sweet potatoes, a lot of things that they needed. I, went through the whole process of making the dirt exactly what I thought the sweet potatoes would like. What I did not realize though is for the first week and a half to 2 weeks, you're supposed to water your sweet potatoes daily. I didn't do that, and the temperatures were well above 90, and so I lost just about half. We planted 24 of these, and I lost 10 of my sweet potatoes. So I've talked to some people, and as long as we kind of baby these, there'll be plenty to fill this area in with the vines or whatever. But it will sort of slow our production, and we probably won't get near as many sweet potatoes. But lesson learned. I'll know that for next time. So we left this area here, as we had said before. We're hoping that the sweet potato vines sort of carry down. If they do not, more than likely, I'll probably just scratch this up a little bit and put in some greens or some beans, something along those lines to keep the soil in place and kind of add back to it. These back here are our slicing cucumbers, and they're coming along nicely as well. They'll start to trellis this week. As if you remember, this little area here was our original pepper bed, and our chickens did not like those peppers here. So what we did was I just put these cages in. We had some tomatoes left. Oh no, I'm sorry. These tomatoes we actually got from our master gardener sale. We knew we had a spot. These look good. These are Rutgers tomatoes. So we like to support our master gardener. So we bought these. And you can see what I did was I just took this little chicken wire here, put it on the front of the tomato cages. Between that and the post at the back side back there, the chickens can't get in and eat my plants. So that's a little trick. I'll just leave this set up this way from now on, and I'll probably do the eggplant that way next year as well. But we put this little fella in. This is just an extra butternut squash that we had laying around, and it's kind of taken off a little bit. The chickens, they won't eat it really, but they trample it, kind of move it around. So we're going to see what happens. Again, if this guy doesn't make it, or he's looking sad like this, say by the end of next week or so, I'll probably go through and just all of the area that's available, I'll put in some bush beans, and that'll kind of add nitrogen back to the soil and hopefully give us a bit of a bumper crop. These are the spaghetti squash. They also benefited greatly from the heat. I don't know if you all saw last week, but if you didn't, you should go back and watch it. It is insane, the difference in the size of these. But you can see this is sort of what I'm hoping for. These are still adolescent plants, so as these plants get bigger and the leaves start to swell a bit, that kind of thing, it'll fill all this and cover it all in. And once that happens, I won't have to worry about the evaporation as much when the sun goes over. But I may still go through and throw in some bush beans if, like I say, in a couple weeks, once they've matured a little more, if there's still open gaps. My whole goal this year is to try to put in, like a bush bean, something along those lines, a nitrogen fixer in any sort of open areas. And we'll use all these vlogs next year to sort of spot open spaces or areas of opportunity, that sort of thing. Eggplant. Now, I know I showed these last week. They had gotten riddled with flea beetles. Let's see if we can, yeah, there you go. You can see that little leaf down there. Had these little holes in it. We treated it with neem oil and the DE, and they have made a remarkable recovery. That guy back there is still struggling a little bit, but he's got some really nice leaves coming on him, so we're excited about that. Eggplant is one of my favorites. I can't imagine my garden without it. It's one of those things though, you don't need very many of them. They put out a lot. Another thing that we discovered, you can see down here, I've got a nice bare spot in my onions. So what I did was, earlier this week I came out and I started seeing dead field rats in my garden up here. Well, one of our cats is going into the cattle field and killing field mice, and they're bringing them up here to eat them. And so they've made this little nest in my garden for my onions. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. I'd rather have them kill the rats and the rats here on the property, but that is kind of taking out some of my onions, so I'll have to deal with that. And then we come to our yellow squash. Now, these yellow squash, I believe these down here are the scallop squash. We don't have any of those coming on yet, but you can see down here we are starting to get some crookneck squash, some yellow crookneck squash. And I've done videos on this, so I won't bore you all with it again, but we do go through and hand pollinate our squash daily. So, all right, we'll take a look at the strawberries. The strawberries have also benefited from the warmer weather. They did dry out a little bit at the beginning of last week. I had to water the whole gardens. I had to go through, especially the raised beds. I was doing them, did them twice in 1 week. And then the last day I did it, of course, we had that crazy storm that came through that wasn't supposed to come through at all. Anyway, came through and dumped almost 2 inches of rain in about 6 hours. But what I didn't want to happen was I didn't want to lose anything early in the spring, and so I was watering to make up for the intense heat, and then we got kind of bombarded by water. But these tomatoes, these strawberries, as you can see, they enjoyed the extra water and the heat. Let's go take a look at our garlic. We haven't looked at it in a little while, but it is starting to, as a result of the heat, you can see it is starting to go to flower. So what I'm hoping is that it's been in the ground enough to where the bulbs on the bottom of it are big enough. I know you can tell from the size here at the stalk, which is sometimes an indicator of what size of bulb you're going to get. The stalks on it are pretty good. So anyway, a lot of times that's what's going to trigger your onions, your garlic, will be the heat. As opposed to some, some vegetables are the light cycle, how much day to night, they, once the equinox, I'm sorry, the solstice, the summer solstice passes, they'll start their cycle. Some plants are in the spring, you know how that goes. But I did want to show that heat did trigger the flowering of these garlic. And down here, our fig tree, we are really proud of it. We lost it 2 years ago. We lost most of it in a crazy winter storm that we had. It was through here for 10 days or so. It was below freezing, killed a lot of things around. A lot of people lost bigger trees, so I shouldn't be too disappointed. Well, we only lost a few fruit trees, that sort of thing. But anyway, the fig tree is back. We're hoping to get a modest crop off of this. My uncle makes some of the best fig jelly you'll ever taste in your life. And when this fig tree was going, he was making like, I don't know, 10, 12 quarts a weekend for, 3-4 weeks in a row when the fig tree was putting off. So it'd be nice to go back to that so we could share with the family. So, and then this here, these are elderberries. Here in the South, they grow wild a lot of times. We use them to cook down and make like a cough syrup. They're really good for any sort of congestion issues or whatever. So we like to cook it down. They can be poisonous. They have arsenic in them, so you have to cook them before you can eat them. So if you have any of these, just remember, cook them down first with a little sugar, and it cooks all of the arsenic out of them, and then from there you can use them. Oh, look at this guy. Always finding interesting things in your garden. But so we'll move on here. The blackberries have really put off this year. We had spoken about it. This is year 3. We are really anticipating getting a large blackberry. Well, I say large, a larger than what we've had. We only had a few berries last year. They were nice and big. They were sweet. There just wasn't very many of them. But this year, this thing is loaded. The chicken strawberry plant, they're putting off these runners. Now, this bed has done really good. The chickens haven't really disturbed it much. Red, though, the new rooster, he got in the other one and removed one. So we're down to 2 strawberry plants in the other planter. But they're chicken strawberries, so that's fine. But this whole thing from, you know, beginning to end is just covered with blackberries. They haven't all started to bloom yet. So they will over the next week. I think this thing will get pretty lit up with blackberries. Now these guys down here, they're blooming. Let's see if we can see underneath, and I'll show you there. See, can you see those? So they got little blooms on them. These are more of the ground cherries, which we've talked about a lot on the channel. We'll talk a little bit more about them when we get in here to the top garden. So, but I just wanted to show them. They're coming along really well. These guys down here, have, even as small as they are, have started to bloom. You'll remember that these were very late additions. Our blueberries we weren't going to plant until the fall. We had these extra in the greenhouse, so we thought, what the heck, we'll put them in because we really enjoy them. We wanted to have a little bit more fruit this year than what we had in years past. Again, just out of control on the blackberries. I just hope they all come to fruition and we get them as opposed to the chickens or the wild birds. But just having them is exciting. Down here is the other planter. It's just, you can tell it was just an old burn barrel that was on the property when we moved in, so it was kind of rusted out through the middle. So we just took the top ring. You know, we kind of believe in using what we have, so we use it, put that in there, and it, you know, it works for the erosion coming across the side of this hill. It helps with that quite a bit with the water flow. It also gives the chickens something to do. Our chickens seem to be a lot happier, healthier, that sort of thing, when we put little things in the yard for them to discover throughout the year. Most of the time, they won't mess with these things until they start getting the red berries on them. It was a lot like the tomatoes that we planted. They'll usually leave the tomato plants alone, and then once they start to get red, that's their trigger, and they'll go over and kind of start eating them up. But this is just sort of we put this in because, you know, you can see the water sort of funnels down, and this helps a whole lot with that runoff as we get down the side of the hill down into the bamboo. Then back there we have the muscadines. We do have our seed tomatoes in back there and covered, so we'll kind of keep updated on that as the year goes along. This fig tree here, it's also another year 3. So I know I keep saying a lot of these things, and this up here, all of these were planted in year 3. This fig tree, we are super happy to have it. We thought that freeze killed it for sure, but it came back. It came back from the ground up, and so we're really excited. We're hoping to get, last year we got this little bitty fig off of it, so maybe we'll get a full-size fig or 2 this year. But it's more important for this guy, for him to be healthy and kind of come up. So we'd like to have our little area down here anchored by some healthy fig trees. All right, so Leslie did plant this. These are called butterfly bushes. We got them from the Master Gardener sale, and we put those in here. Now, let's get into one of the consequences of the rain. Last week, I went through and I healed all these. I got a short on the channel if you'd like to go through and watch it. But I went through to heal all of these potatoes. All of them were nice and tall and filled out all the way through. I went through, I put compost in, I covered it with straw, and this was, I believe it was Saturday of week 19 that we got the crazy storm moved through. Anyway, it was right around Saturday, one of those two. So anyway, but the Wednesday before, it was the hottest day of the week. It was like 98 degrees. It felt like 104, 105. Anyway, I got out here and I put in the compost, put the straw in, and watered the whole gardens in, right? So I watered it in real good. Everything looked really nice. Well, we came through and got that almost 2 inches of rain. And some of these things, I came out and some of them looked like this right here. And then when I went to pull the stalk, you know, to check on it, the whole dadgum stalk came off. I'll show you, I got one right here. Just like this, where it's rotted right at the bottom. And so I started doing a bit of research because I had never had potatoes do that. And apparently the potato, it got too much water. The compost apparently held too much water around the stalk and it rotted it out. Now, after talking to some folks, they said that what's going to end up happening is those potatoes can put off new shoots and grow back through them. So that's what I've been told. I'm not sure. I may have, you know, just killed about half of my potato crop with that weather, just drowned them out. If that happens, it happens. But at least I know the ones that we have left will do well. So anyway, so that's a, you know, a thing from the weather of last week. That's just a casualty. This right here, this is where our cabbages were. I'll show you, I'll go ahead right here and I'll put in the clip of our cabbage that I took out. We went ahead and pulled our cabbages. What ended up happening was the leaves themselves did not get worse and they did not progress into the heads. As you can see here, the heads turned out gorgeous. They're nice size. We planted 6, we only got 5. One of them is a bit smaller, still nice and tight though, where we'll get enough lettuce. So the reason we did this, we spoke to a gentleman at our farmer's market who grows cabbages, and he says that we did the right thing. We stopped the progression, or if we wouldn't have, it would have destroyed the heads like it did on the other one. So they're not going to grow anymore. It's already too late in the season. So we went ahead and pulled them. Cabbage looks good, doesn't it? But you can see here, these are purple hull peas. What we did was, because we had to take the cabbage out, it wasn't going to get any bigger or anything, and we wanted to enjoy it. It was really delicious, by the way. Anyway, we went through and we just overseeded some purple hull peas. Now, we love purple hull peas, so we are definitely going to eat these, but the primary reason we put these in here is because they'll be done by the end of August, is when we want to put our fall cabbages in. Also, they're going to fix nitrogen back into the soil, which is something that our cabbage seeds desperately need. While I'm talking about the cabbage plants, we did order some new seeds. They're non-GMO cabbage seeds, but they are resistant to black rot. From what I've been doing the research on, that's kind of the direction that everybody is going in our area. I asked around, and the varieties that I purchased are the same ones that a lot of the local growers do, and they're just resilient to the black rot. Black rot comes from moisture, and with as much moisture as we get here in the spring and as humid as it is, it seems like it is worth the time to just invest in those seeds. So anyway, the ones in the fall, we shouldn't have that issue. These are the golden wax beans. They're coming along really nicely. We did have some spots that were barren. We had some seeds that didn't come up, but you can see these smaller ones. Those are the ones that we put in. When they got to a certain height, I just went through and put straw in to hold on to the moisture. We did the same thing here, you know, put the straw in once our pole beans started growing. And, you know, you can see the tendrils now. They're starting to shoot up. Once these leaves get to a certain point, these tendrils will start coming out, and they'll reach back, grab those poles, and kind of pull themselves tight. Let me see. Oh, we also, this week, we trimmed and cut up our tomatoes, and thank goodness we did. Like I mentioned before, that dadgum wind that came through on, I keep wanting to say Saturday. I could be off, but I think it was Saturday of week 19. But we tied these up and trimmed them the day before, and thank goodness we did. Like I said, it was in excess of 60-mile-an-hour winds, and now it wasn't a sustained wind though. It was like the wind gust. It was a real weird, it would be like a kind of a light sprinkle for about 20 minutes, and then it would just come a deluge, and the deluge would be accompanied with thunder, lightning, and these crazy winds. A lot of people in our area lost power. It hit us, and it hit, you know, the capital city, Little Rock, and you know, there's a lot more folks that without power there just because of the population density. But these basil have come back a lot. You can if you saw the videos, our basil had sort of suffered a bit from some early season bugs that had come up, but we sprayed them with neem oil and they have bounced back. These Beef Masters, I wanted to show this. Look at the size. I don't know if you can tell, but compared to my thumb, the size of that tomato flower. I'll show you when we get over here on the aromas, but those things are massive. They are bigger than the beefsteak flowers. I'm almost positive. Maybe next year I'll grow them next to each other so we can kind of see. So, but those are looking good. And then our aromas, they're not quite as tall, but they're not going to be. That's, you know, the plants are just different. And they have started to flower. See, you can see this guy back here. You can see the difference in the size of the flowers between the aromas, the Beef Masters. So when I went through to tie these up, I didn't notice really that there were any major pest issues. But we have started the fertilizing routine I wanted to touch on. Everything that you see flowers on will get fertilized every other Monday. So what I do is I use fish emulsion. Every other Monday I walk through the garden, and anything that has flowers on it, I start to fertilize. If any of the leafy greens need it, I'll also do that. But usually the compost has enough nitrogen for our greens. Wanted to stop real fast and show you again. I talked about this briefly earlier about how excited we are for these ground cherries, right? Well, we came out and we started to see, get in there so you can see that fella. We have ground cherries started. We are so excited. We have never grown these. We actually, again, this is a true story. Last year we had them for the very first time. I didn't even know they existed till last year. Lady at the farmer's market had grown them. We bought them because they looked interesting, and you know, she said they had a tropical flavor to them. So we were like, oh, you know, that's great. If you could grow something with that sort of flavor here in Arkansas, that'd be fantastic. They're fun. You pop them out of a little husk, you eat them, and they really do taste a whole lot like a creamy pineapple. That's the only way I can think to describe them. I've heard some people tell me that they taste like an overly sweet tomato. I don't know, I guess maybe depending on the variety that you grow, maybe they have a different taste, but it doesn't really matter. The first time we ate them, we literally went on the internet. I went to Urban Farmer, I ordered the seeds, and here we are. So hopefully in a little while, we'll get our first ground cherries. But here we are. Oh, before I move on, I just wanted to say the best part about ground cherries, that in the research that I've done, is you don't pick ground cherries. What you do is whenever they get ready, they just fall off onto the ground. They have the husk to protect them. So you'll know when it's time to pick your ground cherries, because you'll just come out and they'll be laying on the ground. You can pick them up and you know they're ripe at that point. So anyway, I wanted to say that because it was something unique kind of to them. But here we are onto our zucchini. Now our zucchini are looking good. You can see we have some zucchini down here. Again, we do go through and hand pollinate our own zucchini just to make sure that we don't waste any that we don't have to. For those of you who watched our adaptation, this plant right here was doing really poorly, and I know it doesn't look good in comparison, right? We've been taking off the leaves as the plant works its way through this little funk, but it's starting to get some healthier leaves on it. We've treated it with neem oil and the DE powder. So again, I think what happened is that because of the early warming of the weather, we got some of the boerworms, or the moths, I'm sorry. They laid their eggs for the boerworms. I couldn't find the entrance, but that doesn't mean it wasn't there. So what I did was I just dusted liberally the bottom of the plant, and then I spray it with neem oil. And I make sure on this one specifically, I make sure to spray the bottom of the leaves. I haven't really found any, you know, nematodes or aphids or anything, but it's not gonna hurt the plant to do that. And in case there's something on there that I haven't noticed, it'll prevent it from spreading. But this guy over here has been doing remarkable. We've already got several zucchinis. Oh, so I forgot we had zucchinis and carrots for dinner this week, actually, from the garden. I'll go ahead and put that clip in right here. So we also were able to get our first dinner of zucchini and carrots, these little fingerling carrots. It was time to thin our carrots so they'd get a little bigger. As we were thinning them, you know, we pulled these out, and we'll just roast these and these with some olive oil, throw them over some white rice. They'll be delicious. So lastly here, we'll check out our pallet garden. Down here, the beets, they do not enjoy heat at all, but they grew pretty quick. I was halfway expecting them to start bolting, and when that happens, whenever you'll see like a stem will come up. It doesn't look like, you know, it doesn't look like the leaves or anything. You'll have a stem come up on it. It'll be a little harder, and it'll have like a little flower on the end. Once that happens, you need to pull your beets if you see that, because they're going to start getting woody and hollow on the inside of them and unable to be eaten. So anyway, I was afraid that was going to happen. It didn't. So it went, we had a whole week. It was like 5 days that were just hot. So, and then the weekend cooled off a little bit, you know, after we got the rain we had spoke about. So I'm hoping that we have a chance. Now, let's see if I can get the camera in there. We do. Let's look in here. Yeah, see down here, there are some, you know, some beets. I like to let them get just a hair bigger than that. You know, if these could get, you know, maybe 50% bigger, I'll go ahead and start pulling and thinning them out. We love roasted beets. I cannot overstate how much we love beets. So, and we're still eating these beet greens in our salads. We have started thinning out on that backside over there. You can see those are turnip greens. And we have started thinning those out and using those. The baby turnip greens are just incredible in a salad. They're really good for you. And they're way more tender. So, you know, like at this time of year, especially our beets and our kale, that sort of stuff, there's a lot of hardy lettuces that we put in our salad, and it's always nice to be able to sort of balance that out with something tender. This is our lone watermelon plant on the homestead, and then we have these 3 cantaloupe. I've done the same thing. I've gone through all of these things, have been treated at least once at this point with the neem oil. So, and all of the, like the melons, the squashes, the pumpkins, that sort of stuff, all of those get the base of them dusted with the diatomaceous earth as well, just to prevent anything from boring inside. Our carrots, as you saw earlier, we have started pulling carrots. You can see down there at the base of that guy that it's starting to form. But what we do is, this time of year, we like to leave the carrots thicker until they get about until they get, you know, about this tall. In fact, this over here, this row right here will be thinned towards the end of this week, and then at the bottom of it there'll be little fingerling carrots, and then about 3 or 4 weeks, if you keep up, make sure you water consistently, and you make sure that you keep any of the white flies or anything off of your carrots, you know, by say 1st of June, 2nd of June or so, these things will be nice sized carrots. We can have those to go with our squash, that sort of stuff. I love to roast squash and carrots together with rice or honey, something like that. And then again, I said it before, but when we pull these up out of here, we'll either replace them probably with either bush beans, the bush green bean varieties, or turnips. We don't want them to sit too long, especially in the summertime when it's hot. You don't want to sit it uncovered. Whenever that sun comes down on it, it'll dry it out, and if the wind gusts or anything, even though we have, you know, a good size barrier on the side to sort of prevent as much of that as possible, if it gets too dry, it'll just blow all your dirt away and you'll have to replace it. And while it's not a whole lot, it won't blow off, you know, over the years and over the seasons, it can really add up if you don't try to prevent that wind erosion. But that wisteria is looking a lot better. I cut the crap out of it this year. I cut it way back. So over here is the pepper bed, and now they're starting to get blooms on our peppers, and this side over here are the bell peppers, and this one, for whatever reason, this one and that bell pepper back there, those two, I think we had grasshoppers get in the bed and it stripped a bunch of the bottom leaves. We treated them, and the peppers themselves have bounced back, but they're a little shorter than the rest of the peppers that we have. But like this guy right over here, these folks are doing pretty good. Those are those volunteer carrots in the back. I think we had some white flies come through and just strip them, but we treated it, and they're bouncing back. I don't know what to expect. It was sort of just a novelty idea to try to keep them in and see what happened, since they were self-seeded from last year. Then these over here, these marigolds are coming along nicely. These are part of our companion planting strategy. We show this quite often, but I wanted to just kind of go over it. We are still every day for the last, I think this makes it 3 weeks. for one meal, we will eat scrambled eggs in a salad. We eat kale. The kale plants are a powerhouse. You can see that our leaf lettuce right here, this is the, the little black-seeded Simpson that you grow. This stuff right here has started to thin out considerably. The heat wasn't real kind to it. We also don't plant it besides the early spring, and it'll be out of here by, June 1st at least, if not before. And then that'll make room for, these are the spicy peppers that we've sort of framed the kale out with, and that'll sort of take care of that room. We had an extra kale plant, so I stuck it in that corner, but now we're taking this leaf lettuce out through here, and as we do that, this chart is doing better. Now you can see this guy right here is kind of falling out. He will start to stand up now that we've taken out, I cut out that lettuce that was sort of shading him out a little bit. He'll start to stand up, and in the next 2 or 3 weeks, it looked like that right there. See, that lettuce right there is coming out. That'll probably be tomorrow or the day after. That'll be part of its salad. And then that'll give that Swiss chard and this Swiss chard room to grow, more area. So the whole idea of the way we try to do our greens is we want to eat a salad every day from the garden. We really enjoy salad. It also helps with my energy level, especially in the heat, being able to get outside, not feeling overstuffed, that sort of thing. But between this bed here and the one we saw earlier with the turnips and the beets, we have been able to eat a salad every single day for at least every day for the last 3 weeks. So starting this week, starting week 20 will be the 4th week in a row, I believe. And so soon we're gonna have to start cutting these out. I had showed earlier how when they start to droop like this right here, this stuff will go in tomorrow's salad, these little leaves. But as you can see, it is starting to make its nice little pretty romaine head there. And we love these little loose leaf lettuces like this, or I'm sorry, the loose head lettuces. So, like something like this will be like 3 days worth of salad for Leslie and I whenever it gets fully formed. So what we like to do is we'll go through, and one day maybe where we're lacking on like a softer lettuce where we don't have any of the smaller greens or anything along those, and we have the kale or beets or whatever, then I'll just cut a whole head of this out right at the bottom, and then I'll show you at the time, but the lettuce will grow back from it right up until it's too warm. So we're hoping to get 2 heads out of each one of these beforehand. And then finally up here, these are the cherry tomatoes. We are so excited to start having these. For breakfast every morning, Leslie and I have eggs and rice, and our favorite thing to add to that breakfast are like a handful of cherry tomatoes. So once these guys get going, it's going to be an exciting time for us. See back there, and then Leslie's got some more pollinators on the back side just hanging out there. So well, there's just a few things I'd like to go over before we wrap this up. The first thing being is that we have successfully integrated all 16 of the baby chickens into our flock. It was really easy because of the way we did it. We had more chickens, there's 16 of those, and we only have 9 of our other chickens. So because the baby chicks outnumbered the flock we currently had, there wasn't really any sort of shenanigans or a big deal with the pecking order whenever they were introduced. The bonus to this is that they can start kind of learning the yard now. They very rarely venture out of the coop itself, but the door is open. The other chickens can kind of get in there. They're learning how to, and then, in the afternoon, whenever it starts warming up a bit, the chicks will come out and kind of follow the hens around and see what they do and where they get their food and that sort of thing. And then they'll hustle right back in as soon as they hear a noise or whatever. But it cuts down tremendously on the amount of feed that we were feeding them. Those 16 in that little bitty small area, they were going through a tremendous amount of food, and it's going to be worth it. I don't mean to complain. By the time it's all said and done, those 16 chickens will more than pay for themselves in eggs, and then we plan on using the extra eggs for revenue to pay for the overall food. So, but anyway, that's exciting. We have those in there. As mentioned, we also started the regimen of spraying. So our fruit trees, they have a lot of fruit on them. I don't know how much of it's going to make it. This is my first year to actually put the effort into the fruit trees, so we're going to find out. Oh, one other thing. We had been mentioning about doing raised beds in the big garden at the other end of the property. I'm not gonna have time to do that this year. That, and I also have this grandiose idea of turning it into sort of a show garden. I kind of want to do something where I mix some fruit trees and berries with raised beds and that kind of stuff. So I keep going between if I want to do that or make it into a market garden. So I haven't decided. I just wanted to give everybody an update. So what I'm going to do is just take the tiller down there. I'm going to till the rows, and we're just going to direct sow okra and purple whole peas down there. Purple whole peas will hopefully sort of add stuff to the soil, because we're not going to cover the soil, or we're going to add to the soil in the raised beds. But eventually the plants are going to grow into that bottom soil. So I'd like it to be somewhat fertile, or as much as I can make it anyway. And if we put in the okra down there, what we're hoping is to have enough to pickle, because pickled okra is a big deal in our family. My wife makes probably the best pickled okra I've ever had. So we get a lot of requests for pickled okra every year. So anyway, we'd like to have the okra for that. Trying to think if there's anything else. I'm not sure. I'm sure I missed something, but I just wanted to say we appreciate all you folks that have stayed here till the end of the video. If you have not, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit the little bell icon. YouTube will let you know when we upload new content. And until next time, I hope that you folks take care of yourselves. Peace.